Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 115 of the BoxHard Podcast. This is the last boxing podcast that we will be doing this calendar year. Of course, only a couple of days left till 2017 ends. So it's the last one from us, myself and Ayaz this year. But firstly, of course, I must welcome my co-host, Mr. Ayaz. Sumra Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. And yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. So yeah, this show obviously, like I say, is a show that we promised the people last week because all the other boxing podcasts have decided to take a break. So in that time, you know, those people that just live, eat, sleep, drink boxing, they need something to get them through that little period, I suppose, between Christmas and New Year. That little period where things are a little bit dead, I suppose. Things, you know, some things are not open, some things are, you know, some people are off work, things like that. So it's just one of these little shows that we're going to do here. It's going to be bite-sized. It's not going to be nothing big. We're not going to be doing too much rambling, but we said we'd give you another show, and that's what we're going to do. There's going to be 2 interviews as per usual. The show may be a little bit different than normal. Yeah, we're going to be speaking to Josh Kelly. That's a really good interview. There was a little bit of a sound issue with it. I've tried my best to tweak it up and fix it. It's a really good interview, but I'm going to put that on. That's going to be the last interview of the show. That's going to close out the show, so to speak. The reason for that simply because the sound, but he's a very good interview. You can, you know, just give it a go, and you can hear everything he says, but there was a little bit of an echo problem, so I apologise for that. Also, the first guest will be Ishe Smith, the former 154-pound world champion. He'll be joining us. So there's not really much to talk about. I mean, we did Knockout of the Year last week. We did Fighter of the Year. We did our pound for pound lists. So this week we sent a tweet out on Twitter basically asking for, you know, the listeners and our followers and stuff like that for their opinions on what great fights could be made in 2018. Which big fights are you looking forward to? So we got a few replies, and really we're just going to divide up the show. We're gonna do some of those in part 1, and then we're going to do the other ones in part 2. So it's just going to be really pretty much talking about fights that may happen in 2018, mega fights that we all want to see, and myself and Ayaz may jump in with 1 or 2 of our own. So yeah, let's get started with the list. So basically, I put this tweet out on Twitter, Ayaz. We've had a few replies. We've had a few decent, you know, suggestions here. So we've got quite a few actually sent in by Sean Brown. That's at sbrown2pt0. He sent in Usyk versus Gassiev. Now, obviously, both guys are in the World Boxing Super Series tournament in the cruiserweight division. You know, that tournament itself has been amazing. For me, though, I mean, Gassiev's obviously got the fight coming up with Dorticos. I don't think he wins that fight. I think Dorticos probably beats him, in my honest opinion. And obviously, Usyk's got to take on Maris Bridis. I think that Maris Bridis against Gassiev's probably a better stylistic matchup, in my opinion. You know, the shocking thing about Gassiev, he's only 24. And that's shocking because he looks a lot older. I'm just reading that now, only being 24. But I don't know. I mean, you know, he had a really close fight with Denis Lebedev, one that he won by split decision, you know, a year ago now. But I don't know. I mean, he's got a decent resume, but I don't know. I mean, you compare it to Usyk, and obviously Usyk's only had the 13 fights, so like half the amount of pro fights, you know, than what Gassiev had. But obviously he's got a good amateur pedigree, Usyk. But I just think that Usyk's probably the man who could probably win that fight, and he's a slightly shorter guy, but just with the southpaw stance and the awkwardness and the movement of Usyk, I think Usyk could probably get to Gassiev. I'm not sure if he stops him, because I think Usyk, I think maybe his power's a little bit overrated. I know he's got 11 knockouts from 13 wins, but I don't really think he's a massive puncher. I think that out of the two, Gassiev may have the bigger bang on him. I'm not sure. It's a bit of a toss up, but no, I mean, I think Usyk could probably get to him, and if not stop him late, then maybe just outpoint him over the distance. I don't know, man. It's a hard fight, and I'm not going to sit here and say I've seen loads of Gassiev. I haven't, but I mean, Usyk's looking really special. He's my number one guy in that division. But like I say, I think Dorticos could probably beat Gassiev. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, Gassiev against Breedis, I think that's a great fight. But I think Gassiev would probably win that fight, to be honest. Breedis, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think out of the 4 remaining fighters in this tournament, I think he's like the biggest underdog. I'm not quite sure on that. That's just a bit of a guess. How do you see that one, Ayaz? Obviously, it would be a great fight if it was to happen. Usyk and Gassiev.
I think it would be a very good fight, but like I said, Usyk, I reckon, obviously Usyk, we know him by his style of fighting. I reckon Usyk will win the fight.
And another fight that Sean Brown sent in. Another good fight, you know. He knows what he's talking about here. He sent in a great list. Kovalev versus Beterbiev. This is a fight that I wanted to happen probably about a year ago. But Beterbiev, you know, he had some promoter issues, I think, outside the ring, and he's only kind of just broke onto that world level scene, I suppose. Even though, you know, his first few fights were against really good opponents, he didn't take things easy. He really got in there with good fighters straight away. But you know, actually being up in the top 10 and all that kind of stuff, he's just captured a title now, Beterbiev, and you know, people weren't really impressed with that performance, and I don't want to knock him too much on that, but I don't know, there's 2 ways to look at this fight. Obviously Kovalev, some people saying he's over the hill. I don't really think so. Beterbiev, obviously a big puncher, 12-0, 12 knockouts, but you know, they had some a couple of fights in the amateurs. Again, I'm not checking this, but Beterbiev, obviously, I think he beat Kovalev in the amateurs once or twice, so there's that there. But I think it just depends, man. I mean, it depends which Kovalev turns up. I mean, he's only had the 2 losses, but they were to Andre Ward, so you can't really take too much out of those, you know. It's like when people used to lose to Floyd Mayweather and suddenly people would say, they're not very good. No, they lost to the best fighter in that division, and that's what's happened there to Kovalev. Obviously the first one being very controversial, but I don't know, man. That's a brilliant fight. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. He sent in another good fight here. Obviously Kovalev, the older man, but Beterbiev's not that fresh because he had a really big amateur career as well. So I don't know. That's a tough fight. There's only 2 years between them. That's a brilliant fight. Like I say, you know, it would be for a couple of belts as well. I'd love to see it happen, Ayaz. But yeah, both men can hit hard enough to put the other one out with one shot. Who would you favour in that one, Beterbiev and Kovalev? I mean, at this stage, I suppose I'd have to say Kovalev.
You're right. I have to go with Kovalev as well. I think Kovalev is a very big puncher. He's fought for top guys, but like I said, with Kovalev's experience, I reckon he'll win the fight.
Yeah, I mean, the experience it could play a big key. You know, obviously Kovalev's fully adjusted to the pros, you know, so he should have. And Beterbiev in his last fight, like I say, I watched it against Enrico Colin, and you know, he didn't look that great, and we haven't really seen Kovalev not look good. You know, Kovalev's looked good in every fight, aside from the second one against Andre Ward, and you know, he wasn't bad in that fight, but I've already spoke about that. So I don't know. For me, I think Kovalev would beat him at this stage. I mean, I really like the look of Beterbiev. I remember watching his first couple of fights when he just turned over and he was just, you know, banging people out in the first round and stuff. So I'm high on him, but you know, that's a brilliant fight. I'd love to see that happen. Sean Brown's also sent in Stevenson versus Jack. Again, this is a fight where I really like the look of Badou Jack, and I criticised him before because he got knocked out, obviously, you know, by a bit of a journeyman. And since then, he's just gone from strength to strength. Obviously, you know, he's just moved up now. He took on Nathan Cleverly, who looked absolutely shot, and he completely battered him, and he looked really good. But, you know, I kind of question, what was Nathan Cleverly doing in there? He was awful, and surely he must have known that in his camp, because he just looked so shot-walled. It was unreal. And he's obviously retired after that. So I'm not going to jumped the gun too much on Badou Jack being the real deal, so to speak, at light heavyweight yet, because I think Cleverly was, you know, he kind of had one foot out the door a little bit. So yeah, I mean, he did well to pick up a title, Cleverly, to be completely honest. I mean, he really did, but yeah, I think that Badou Jack blitzed him and in style as well, so credit to Badou Jack, but I don't know if he's 110% the real deal yet. We talk about Adonis Stevenson. He's a man who hasn't really wanted to fight a live body for quite a while. And obviously, he, to some extent, must have one foot out the door because, you know, obviously he's getting up in there, you know, in age as well. So it'd be a great fight. And it simply comes down to, obviously, Badou Jack would be getting properly tested for the first time at light heavyweight. Obviously, Adonis Stevenson being a southpaw as well, and, you know, his left hand is absolutely beautiful, straight down the pipe. You know, he's got one of the best left hands in the game today. Simple as that. And you know, age isn't a problem with that. You know, he's still got that power, absolutely. But it's just a case of if Badou Jack can take away that left hand, take it out of play, and, you know, beat him on points. I don't think Badou Jack could knock I mean, he probably could, because let's have it right, Stevenson also got knocked out once upon a time by a bit of a journeyman also. I don't want to be too harsh on Darnell Boone, but, you know, it did happen, but that was some moons ago, and so was the Badou Jack loss, I suppose. But I don't know, it's a bit of a stern test straight away, but I do want it to happen. But I think Badou Jack's definitely, probably, I don't want to say definitely, probably the more rounded fighter, and I definitely would back him to win. I hope he'd win, but it is a hard fight to pick. But if I had to side, I think I'd probably go with Badou Jack on that one. Ayaz, what's your thoughts on that?
Badou Jack, because I reckon Badou Jack has stepped up big time. Since that loss he's had on his record first, he's improved as a fighter. We've seen him beat Anthony Durrell, beat Cleverly up. But yeah, I'll edge it to Badou Jack.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It just simply comes down to, you know, what Stevenson's got left against a good fighter. He hasn't really fought one for a long time now. You know, you've got to really look on his resume at a really fresh fighter. I mean, he hasn't fought an unbeaten fighter. He hasn't. I'm looking at his resume now. He hasn't beaten an unbeaten fighter since his fourth professional fight. He beat a guy who was 3-0, and he hasn't really, I mean, you know, since he picked up the title, obviously he did it against Chad Dawson. He looked brilliant there. Chad Dawson hasn't really looked the same since. That was a great win. Chad Dawson was 31-2. Then he took on Tavoris Cloud, obviously beat him. Bellew, we know what happened there. Fonfara obviously had 2 matches with him. Thomas Williams Jr., good win, I suppose, but he was really stepping up in level. Sakio Bika, you know, he didn't get him out of there. Tommy Carpensi, poor defence. I don't know, man. I think I probably would favour Badou Jack. You know, just once again, I want to say that there. But no, he's a brilliant southpaw. Very, very underrated in some ways, Stevenson. The way people talk about him, he is a bit of a, I don't want to call him a chicken, but he is a bit of a ducker. Let's be completely honest. And yeah, but I mean, as a fighter, he's a good fighter, but he just doesn't really want a live body in there. And I think that there's a reason for that. I think it's the age factor. Triple G versus Canelo 2, Ayaz, and I'm gonna say this now, and I'm sure I said it before. The first fight was a brilliant fight, as we all know. I thought that Triple G did enough to win. I think that you agree with that. In the second fight, I've got to be honest, I think Canelo is getting better all the time. I think that Canelo, you know, we've both got Canelo and Triple G in our top 3 pound for pound lists as we went through last week. But I think Canelo, it pains me to say it, but I think Canelo's going to probably come into this fight a lot smarter, knowing what to expect, and just a lot better, actually. I think he would have worked on a lot in that fight. And I think that Golovkin, for me, slowed down a little bit. And I say that because, you know, he was on that impressive knockout streak, and then for a couple rounds he didn't look great against Kell Brook. Then he went the distance with Danny Jacobs. Then he went the distance with Canelo. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit harsh, but I think that Canelo might outpoint him this time. And it pains me to say it really does, because I wish the fight happened a couple of years ago and Golovkin would have definitely beaten him. And I hope Golovkin can pull it off. I really do, because Golovkin's a smart guy as well. But I think the timing's right now for Canelo to beat him, and it's a shame because I love Golovkin, man. He's probably my favourite fighter in world boxing, and you know, it is what it is. But I think Canelo could do it in the rematch, but I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you on that at the moment, Joey. I reckon, like, I thought Golovkin won the fight. The judge, I don't know what they're watching in that fight, but I personally think Golovkin. I think Canelo will beat him on points if the rematch happens.
Yeah, me too. And we're going to try to whiz through these a little bit quicker. He's also sent him Thurman versus Crawford. Again, it's a case of what Crawford's going to be like at 147. He was the man at 140, but I don't think the competition was really there. I don't want to take too much away from him. He's excellent, you know. And again, he's in my top 3 pound for pound. But in fact, I said before that Canelo and Triple G's in our top 3. I think Canelo was my 4th and also your 4th, if I remember correctly. So Crawford is in our top 3 for sure. Yeah, Crawford. It just depends what he's going to be like at 147. Like I say, the competition wasn't the best at 140. There were some good guys, but there weren't any Danny Garcias, any Errol Spences. There wasn't any Keith Thurmans, maybe any Sean Porters. No, there's big names there. You know, Kell Brook obviously just moved up, but 147's obviously been a brilliant division for years and years, and I think that dependent on what he looks like at the weight, it will tell us everything that we need to know. Keith Thurman, I've got to put, for now, the number 1 man at 147 because he's fought the right guys and he's beaten them all. He's still undefeated. He's still a world champion. So, for me, he's the top of the pack at the moment. But if Crawford can, I don't know, man. If he can get a good win or two, then I may sway a little bit. But it has to be against proper guys like Thurman. You know, I've got to give him so much credit for taking on, you know, the likes of Porter, the likes of Garcia. Those were brilliant fights. Those were 50-50 fights. Let's be honest, and he came through both of them. So I am really big on Thurman. Again, he's been out for a little while. Some people say he's trying to duck Errol Spence. You know, I don't believe he's trying to duck anyone. I think that he's a tough guy. He's earned his right to be at the top of the pile in that division. So for me, right now, I'd have to edge Thurman simply because I haven't seen what Crawford's all about. But saying that, Crawford is definitely higher in my pound for pound list than Thurman is. So it's one of them ones where I'm not too sure yet. But I'd love to see Errol Spence against Terence Crawford. And I asked Spencer Fearon what he thinks would happen in that fight last week, and he said that he believes Crawford would beat Errol Spence. So that's a fight I'd be more, you know, up for watching. But yeah, I think Thurman's at the top of the pile until Terence Crawford gets a couple of legit bodies on his resume at 147 first. What's your thoughts on that one, Ayaz?
Well, Thurman, he's a very good fighter. We see him just beat Danny Garcia. He's been out there. He hasn't fought since the Garcia win. Crawford, we saw him at 140. He cleared out the division. I want to see him fight at 147, one fight, then I can find out who wins from that fight. Yeah,
you're sitting on the fence. That's all right. Like I say, we try to whiz through these a little bit quicker. Lomachenko versus Garcia. I'm guessing that's Mikey Garcia. Obviously, we know the fight's not going to happen. At least for the foreseeable future anyway. Mikey Garcia's took a fight at 140, and obviously Lomachenko's still at 130, and I don't really see him moving up to 140 too quickly if he even does. It's obviously a tough one. Garcia's big for depends at what weight it's made at as well. You know, he's big for a lightweight, I think, Garcia, but obviously I don't know, he's not that big for. Yeah, he is. He's big for a lightweight. He is big for a lightweight. So, you know, he definitely have the size on his side, and obviously that would be a big advantage to him. A little bit similar to what it was like for Rigondeaux and Lomachenko the other week, but obviously Lomachenko's my pound for pound number 1. He's the more skillful guy, but I just can't see the fight happening. I'd probably like Mikey Garcia to do it because I really like Mikey. I think he's extremely underrated, and you know, he's not a household name, unfortunately, to the casual fan, but it's a tough fight. I mean, it would depend what weight it's at, but you know, if it's at 135, then I think it's a brilliant, almost a 50-50 fight, maybe 60-40 to Lomachenko, just based on what he's been doing lately. I don't think he'd make Garcia quit, that's for sure. I think Garcia's got a huge heart, and if the fight was somehow made at 140, I think that I'd probably favour Garcia, maybe 60-40 to him. What's your thoughts on that one, Ayaz? Garcia, Mikey Garcia and Lomachenko. Depends what weight it's at.
Oh, that's a very tough fight. Mikey Garcia, we've been seeing him beating a lot of fighters up. We've seen him beat Broner last. Now he's fighting Sergei Lipnet. Lomachenko made 4 fights, quit on the stool. Depends what weight it is. Lomachenko is going, if he goes up to another weight, I still reckon I'm going to favour Mikey Garcia in this fight.
And coming down to the last couple now that Sean Brown sent in, he sent in Inoue versus Zolani Tete. I think that I'd probably favour Inoue. Inoue is going to be moving up as well, so yeah, that should be interesting. That's a fight that may happen. So I think I'd probably pick Inoue in that one, Ayaz. Inoue or Tete?
I'll go with Inoue as well.
Rung Vasai versus Cao Yafai.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Like I said, not many people heard of Rung Vasai before he came in, and he's beat Roman Gonzalez. That's another 50-50 fight. We see who's the better man on the night. That's it.
I'd favour Rung Vasai in that one big. I think he could probably. I think he probably stops Yafai, if I'm honest. I would love to see that fight happen, by the way, because that would be wicked. I mean, if Cao Yafai could pull it off, by the way, and Cao Yafai is a guy that I like, obviously, first, Birmingham-born world champion. He's been on this show before. I like Cao a lot, and if he was to win that fight, then he would really be projected into stardom. He really would. But for me, I think he probably loses. And also Daigo Higa versus Andrew Selby. Now, this is a fight that again could end up happening very soon. I don't know, it just worries me. The one thing that worries me about Andrew Selby, and this is a fight that I think probably will happen in the new year at some point. I mean, Daigo Higa is obviously supposed to be fighting in February against Fuentes, but it's a fight I think is going to happen very soon. Andrew Selby sometimes in fights, I believe, can switch off. Sometimes he's fighting really well. He's doing all the right things. He's listening, and sometimes it's like his body's in there, but his mind's not. If you know what I mean. Andrew Selby, obviously, I've said it before. He's got brilliant feet. It'd be good to see him against a puncher like Higa, 14-0, 14 knockouts. I think that he could, using his feet, get in and out of range really well. So I think that's a brilliant fight. The only thing is, obviously, Higa's established himself at world level. Andrew Selby, I don't know what his chin is honestly like. I mean, he was put down by a guy who wasn't really a big puncher, I don't think, a couple fights ago. Certainly wasn't, a world contender or anything like that. So that was a little bit worrying, especially if he's going to be facing a world-class puncher in Higa here. But, oh man, it's a brilliant clash of styles. It really is. I mean, like I say, Selby's not a big puncher at all. He's a guy that gets in, throws his shots, gets out. He's a brilliant fighter, Selby. I love watching him fight. I've said it, numerous times, but it's a hard fight. I'd love to see, and I'm not going to go against Andrew Selby. I love him to bits, but it's a tough fight, that one. It really is a massive step up. He's fought these durable fighters, and Higa, that's another thing. Higa, I don't really think that he would have fought anybody like Selby. Higa's also quite young. He's 22. Selby's obviously the older guy, and Selby's had a great amateur career. So, oh man, it's a wicked fight. I love that fight. Of all the list, that's the fight I want to see. I love that fight so much. So I really hope it does happen in 2018. It's hard to pick a winner, isn't it? I mean, you can't take nothing away from Higa. He's knocked everybody out that he's fought, but Andrew Selby's he's a different kettle of fish in some ways, because he brings that awkward style. He's very unconventional. He's very hard to hit. He's got the great feet, as I've mentioned. He throws shots from all sorts of angles. He reminds me of like a special throwback fighter from years and years ago, maybe the 40s, something like that. He's got that style about him, Andrew Selby. So for me, I've got to sit on the fence. I don't like to do it, but I've got to do it. But I hope the fight happens, first and foremost. Ayaz, I don't think you've seen much of Higa, have you?
No, I haven't, unfortunately.
No worries. All right, cool. Right, that is all the the talking, all the rambling. There's been no reviewing, of course, because there hasn't been any fights on. And just before we wrap up part one, there's one last thing to do. That, of course, is to welcome guest number one. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former IBF Junior-Middleweight champion of the world, Mr. Ishe Smith. Ishe, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, sir. It's my pleasure. So, Ishe, if we just get back in my virtual time machine just for a second here, after obviously turning pro in 2000, in the millennium, you had many good fights with many good fighters, to be honest. Alfonso Gomez, Sam Gar, Randall Bailey. You took on David Estrada. You took on Ahmed Kaddour. Took both of their O's as well. You fought Sergio Mora, fought Danny Jacobs, to name a few. One thing that is pretty clear to see, one thing that we all know for sure, is that you never had things easy. You really had to work hard for what you've got. And I'm going to go now to a date that I believe you'll never forget for the rest of your life. February the 23rd, 2013. Walk us through that night, Ishe, and what it was like to achieve what every boxer sets out to achieve.
Man, that was, I compared it back then, and even to this day, it's almost like having, watching your fiance, girlfriend, or wife give birth to your child. It was a great experience. It was one of the greatest days of my life. Everything had just, come to fruition. And, man, it just was a wonderful time to finally achieve my dreams after being in the game for 13 years. So it was just great, man. It's no better feeling in the world. It's a day I'll definitely cherish for the rest of my life. And Vegas giving me my own day. February 23rd is forever known as Ishe Smith Day. So my city doing that for me was great.
Excellent, man, excellent. I remember we actually had Cornelius Bundridge on the show before. I think we spoke about that fight, I'm sure. And like I say, you could clearly see what it meant to you straight after the decision was announced. I mean, you went straight on your knees and, you were tearful. It's one of my favourite, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, it's one of my favourite celebrations with emotion, what I've ever seen somebody have after a win. So, brilliant stuff to see what it meant to you there. And obviously, since then, you fought the likes of Carlos Molina, another man we've had on this show. You've also fought Erislandy Lara, Vanes Martirosyan, and most recently, Julian J-Rock Williams, a fight that you lost, but the scorecards were a little bit surprising for me. What did you make of that fight there, Ishe?
Oh, a lot of people, which is fans and pundits, they had the fight way closer. I haven't watched the version on TV yet. I thought it was close. I mean, to put on a performance like that, 17 years into my career, to fight a young, hungry guy that many people before, he fought Charlo and had the setback. Many people saying that he was going to be the next world champion. A lot of people thought he was going to beat the Charlo, and he only has one loss. So to go in there and push a guy like that to the brink and to be 39 and, and fight the way I fought, I showed I have a lot in the tank. I was very disappointed in the scores, though. I mean, 9-1 and 8-2 is almost laughable. It's a shame that the judging has gotten so bad, and even 7-3 is somewhat questionable, but it's bad. I think we need younger judges. I think we need fresher judges. I mean, some of these judges were judging before I even turned professional, and I've been in this game 17 years. They're still the same judges walking around here. So, like I said, it's just real unfortunate. We put a lot of time and effort into our careers. We train hard. We leave our families. Sometimes it's 2 months. Sometimes it's 3 months. And the least you want is a fair and proper decision. Win, lose, or draw. You want to feel like it was fair. But when you perform so well and you have a judge score the fight 9-1, that's very disappointing.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I tried to. They didn't show it over here on TV. I had to go on the internet and find a stream of it, and I tuned in from about round 6 onwards, or maybe about round 5, like halfway through the fight, and I I gave you more than 2 rounds in the second half of the fight. I haven't even seen the first few rounds, so yeah, it seemed like the judges were a little bit off the ball in that fight. And also, I actually thought, and I mean this not in a rude way at all, but obviously it was a Mayweather card. I thought that if there was going to be anyone getting a little bit of love from the judges, it would probably be you over him. So it was really wrong, in my opinion.
And I don't even want the love from it being my promoter's card. I just want a fair shot, either his way or my way. If whoever's the better man, I'm a huge, you guys call it soccer, football. I call it, in the States, we call it soccer. I'm a huge, football fan, and, it's whoever's the best on the pitch that day, wins. If I'm better, no matter the age, if I'm better than him the night of the fight, I deserve to be awarded the decision. I thought I was better. I thought I landed the cleaner punches. I thought I had him hurt a couple times. So to just give me 1 round is just, like I said, very disappointing.
Yeah, I have to agree. And Ishe, obviously, this year as a whole has been a pretty bad. Well, pretty is really a bit of an understatement. A real bad year for you, not just obviously inside the ring, but outside the ring. I mean, that situation there, I just really wanted to touch on it, just for those that may not know what has happened. Has it been the toughest year of your life or your career, Ishe, this year?
Yeah, I've had some, I call my career, it's been full of up and downs, roller coaster. It's been like a roller coaster ride. Kind of when you go up and, you anticipate the going down, but it's like I was just going down here and it never came up. Like the ride just never ended. This was definitely inside and outside of the ring, one of the toughest years of my life, dealing with death so close to my family, so close to my kids, so close to me, and, the longevity of not being able to fight, being out for 14 months for absolutely, no reason to be out that long. That was very tough, and just trying to maintain financial obligations, trying to keep my kids' health insurance paid and, stuff like that. That's just been it's been a very challenging year, and I don't think people realize how challenging that is. It's easier to look on the outside and say things, but it's harder when you live that life. It's easier just to tell a fighter, go get a job. Most of fighters don't have an education. They don't know where to get a job or what to do. And then when all you want to do is fight, it's tough when you're not fighting. So it's definitely been a challenging year. I thought definitely, bit of a disappointment year, even though it was one of my better fights. It was one of my, it was a great fight, and, the scorecards didn't reflect how good the fight was, but, it was still a disappointing year for me. I mean, I only fought once this year, so to me it was a disappointment.
Yeah, I agree with you there about, the judges' scorecards not really reflecting how good the fight was. But just to backtrack a little bit there, and for those, like I say, that may not know what has happened this year, if you can correct me if I'm wrong at any point in this, I just want to let the listeners know, obviously, your ex-wife and mother to your 3 children was targeted at random as she was sitting outside a shopping mall. Obviously, she was shot in the back of the head with a shotgun from close range in a complete surprise attack. Am I right with all that, Ishe?
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. The trial's supposed to start, I think, early part, maybe January or February. It was completely random. We didn't know who the guy was or anything, or she didn't even know the guy. She didn't even see him coming, and he completely just snuck up behind her and shot her in the head. So it's just been one of, that coupled with being inactive, it just was just an awful, just an awful year. And I dealt with a lot of things in my career, a lot, but this definitely was very challenging. Times I didn't want to box no more. Times I didn't even know whether I was coming or going. So it was, it's just been one of those years, man. And to cap it off with a great fight like that was, it was great, but still disappointing. And like I said, the judges, and just a disappointing year altogether. For no fighter wants to be off 14 months, especially one that wants to make another run. Whether I achieve that second title or not, I still want to be able to make a run at it.
Yeah, and one thing I want to bring up as well, Ishe, something that while you're here, I think that I should say to you. Obviously, you posted a letter on Twitter that I've seen. It's your post. It's your pinned tweet. A really really sad thing that one of your daughters wrote, which I read it, and after about 2 lines I start crying. It's a really emotional letter. I just really wanted to say, that's obviously a very personal thing, but a really, really sad thing. I just really wanted to say, I wish you the best, along with your daughters, of course, through this awful situation. But surely after something like that, Ishe, and I'm not trying to make excuses for you, but how can you go into a big fight against Julian Williams with your mind in the right place just months after something like that?
It's just my strength over the years, man. It's just been, I've been a part of some great camps where I was, chief sparring partner, or one of the top sparring guys. It's me, the times I spent talking to Diego Corrales in camp, or the times I've, chatted with Shane Mosley and being his chief sparring partner, or Floyd, or, Vernon Forrest. Those guys really just taught me how to press forward and always never take the game for granted. So it was kind of just those talks that I reminisced about during this camp, and I had a lot of soul searching to do this camp and find out, when I had been off so long and realizing I was 39 years old, I'm like, man, how much do I got left in this tank? How much? That's all I thought about this camp was how challenge yourself, how much you got left, and I watched, Roger Federer win another major, a major this year in tennis, and he's old, and nobody thought he would, be able to do that again. So I had some inspirations to look up to, in camp, but I also had to challenge myself and reminisce about me coming up with some great fighters, and I was able to really put my mind and body and spirit into my training, and it was one of the best camps I had. I was in great shape, and one of my better fights at 39 is I've had so many good fights over the years. It's kind of hard to say if it was my best. I had people tell me it was the best they seen me offensively, but it's just it was one of my better fights, and to do that 17 years into this game, and I was proud of that, just not as a scoring.
Yeah, I agree with that. Every single word you said there. You mentioned there about sparring. Ishe, one of the questions that I did want to ask you is, who would you say is the best fighter that you've ever shared a ring with? It can be in a fight, it can be sparring, it can be in the pros, in the amateurs. Who's the best guy you shared a ring with?
Oh, man. Some of the hardest sparring that I've had throughout my career, I would say number one would probably have to be Floyd, and that's just not because he's my promoter. Or he works with that, has nothing to do with it. I'm taking all that out of the equation because I sparred him even before any of that even happened. So, but he just makes you think so much. It's like when I see him fight people, and they have a good round, and then I reflect on the Shane Mosley, how he had the good second round, and he hurt Floyd, and after that he just kind of disappeared, for the rest of the fight. So Floyd just makes you think so much. Is that you spend so much time thinking, you kind of forget what you're doing in there, and he's so talented with figuring you out and making you think. He's like a master chess player, so it's a tad bit confusing. That's why you see guys confused. Their punch output isn't as high when they fight him, because he's so good at just having to take away what you do best and make you think about finding a plan B and C, and before you know it, the fight is over. Vernon Forrest too is very tough. He had a very good jab, and he was strong, and he was a tough sparring partner. Shane was tough. Vargas was he was a tough customer because I helped him get ready for De La Hoya. He was a tough sparring partner. I've had some good ones over the years, man. Those guys were all good, and each camp taught me a little bit more than got me prepared to this stage that I'm at today. So I take nothing for granted. But if I had to pick one as being the toughest, I would definitely have to say Floyd.
And obviously, as you mentioned there, you've been signed with Floyd for a while now. When did you first sign with Floyd? Which year was that? Because you've been with him one of the longest, right?
2012, I think, was my first fight with them, and I think I signed shortly after my first fight.
Okay, and obviously, it's been noted that Floyd likes to buy his fighters these expensive gifts. I think we've had Gervonta Davis on saying that I think maybe Floyd bought him a truck or something. The same thing happened with Ashley Theophane. Did he buy you anything? Any good gifts?
He, after I won the world title, he bought me a nice watch. And after, he bought me a nice watch and a car. So, those are great gifts, obviously, for winning the world title and becoming the first fighter in Las Vegas to do that, and at Las Vegas, Nevada to ever do that, and the first world champion in the Mayweather promotion. So those are two great gifts that I hold dear to my heart.
Yeah, of course. And the last question on the past, so to speak, who would you say out of all the people that you've shared the ring with also hit the hardest?
Oh man. That's tough because I've only been down once in my career, and that was with Bonez. I've been down. I went down twice in that fight. I thought the first knockdown was a little tricky. I didn't think I was a little bit more balanced. The second knockdown was a legit knockdown. But I don't know if he hits the hardest. I don't know if that was more so of me coming in and getting caught with a good counterpunch. I've been in there with some strong guys, man. And if I had to pick one pound for pound, that was probably the strongest puncher out of all of them, will probably have been Randall Bailey, man. He was strong, and then I fought him with only 13 fights, and he was known, he was like 27 and maybe one or two with like 24 knockouts. He had like more knockouts than I had fights. So if I had to pick one as being pound for pound, the best one I've been in there with through the years, it would have to be him. He was strong, man.
Yeah, he was 27-3 when he fought you with 26 knockouts.
Right. He was strong, man.
Yeah. And also, obviously, as I said, you've had a few hiccups this year, to say the least. Did you manage to have a decent Christmas in the end, by the way?
Yeah, God is good, man. I always make do with what we have. Never ashamed of what I don't have, and always make do with what I do have. And my kids and myself had a decent and a great Christmas, and that's what it's all about. I do for them, and I fight for them, and it was a great Christmas. I'm blessed, man.
Brilliant, man. I'm happy to hear that. Back onto a more positive note, of course. Your record right now, 29-9. You've never been stopped. Your age, 39, as you said, coming off a good performance. But you feel like you've got at least one big night left in you, to say the least. Because, like I said, that last performance was really good, as I've said a few times now. You like the idea of fighting in the UK, you've said recently. Would you be looking at fighting at 154 like usual, or would you consider moving up to 160, Ishe?
I would either or. I'm obviously I'm open to fighting at 160 in the UK if the fight is big enough, and I'm definitely open to fighting at 154. I know you guys have some great champions there. There was a small discussion about me possibly fighting Kell Brook. I don't know what happened. I think they went a different route, but they did. Eddie Hearn did have a conversation with my team about it when we got to a number, and I think they just went a different route. That's a, fight I would be interested in. Any 154-pound fight I would definitely come over for. It's not even about money, it's just about being able to say I did it. I've been in the game 17 years, and I've never fought in the UK, and the UK has some great fans. They're very great boxing historians, and Anthony Joshua is selling out 90,000-seat arenas. I don't even think we can do that here in the States. You got, they really support their own, and I would just love to be able to fight. Say I fought one time in front of the British fans before my career is over, and no matter who it is, but definitely 154. I know you got Ishe Smith there. You got some good fighters there, so I would definitely, 154 or 160 is something I would definitely be interested in.
Yeah, those are the two names I was going to throw at you. Obviously, Kell Brook moving up to 154. He's fighting a guy called Sergei Rabchenko, who I don't know too much about, if I'm being honest. And the other name, obviously, there, Liam Smith. I think that would be good. Obviously, at the moment, he's highly ranked with a WBO. He's the number one mandatory for Saddam Ali. But that would be good, Smith versus Smith. And not only that, but obviously, his promoter, Frank Warren's recently worked with Floyd himself for the Gervonta Davis first defense. So that is a fight that I believe could end up happening.
Yeah, right. Like I said, he's a great fighter. It's so many good fighters over in the UK, man. I mean, it's just so many. The 168 fighters, the 68-pound fighters are you guys are stacked with those over there. And then obviously, I think the best heavyweight in the world, and Anthony Joshua. It's a lot of good fighters over there, but I would definitely love to come there and fight them. Like I said, the fans and just the atmosphere is something I want to experience before, I'm done.
Yeah, and I mean, at 160, we haven't really got loads there. I mean, obviously, we got Billy Joe. He looked really good the other night against Lemieux, but aside from him, when you look down the list, we haven't really got much at 160, which is probably better for you to be at 154 anyway, where you're more comfortable, right. I'd guess. But no, for me, I like the Liam Smith fight. I just like the Smith versus Smith slogan, if you like.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, is that a fight that you'd fancy, Ishe? Is that a fight that could potentially be next for you? If so, when would you be ready for that fight and all the others?
I mean, if they called me and they made an offer today, I would fight him next. I'm from the old school, man. And old school fighters don't care about losses. Old school fighters just care about going out there and performing. And some of my losses, I definitely feel, I had better nights. Lars, just a talented, gifted fighter, and he cruised to victory against me. And, no heart, no shame in losing that. Danny Jacobs was a close, competitive fight. He just edged me out on the scorecards. But, Fernando Guerrero and Julian Williams, the Sergio Mora fight, I've probably got about 3 or 4 losses that are controversial, or you can say either way. So if they call me, I would go over there in a heartbeat, to make that fight happen. I would go over there next. So I know he's got the number one. He's number one to Saddam Ali. So he's probably waiting on that. But definitely in the future, if they call me for that fight, I would go in a heartbeat.
And who would you like out of all those UK names? Who's the one who you look at out of the bunch of them and say that's the one I prefer out of all of them?
The ideal one that I think is ideal, that is probably easier to make, is probably Kell Brook, because it's ideal. He's having his first fight there, and if he comes out victorious in that fight, I think it's ideal that it can happen after his next fight. Now, I think the Liam Smith fight will be a little bit tougher because he's the number one contender. He's got his title shot. He's in line for a title shot. So that's very, he's probably going to go after that, which I wouldn't blame him. But the ideal situation, obviously, is definitely Kell Brook. Now, if I was to go up in 160, then, of course, you want to fight one of the best middleweights in the world, which is Billy Joe. I mean, I know he has nothing to really gain by fighting me, but if I was at 160 and I was moving up to 160, why wouldn't I want to fight the best? He's one of the best in the world, and I want to fight the best. I already went up and fought Danny Jacobs. I went up and fought Fernando Guerrero. If I was going to go up, I'm not going to go up just to fight anybody. I would want to fight the best in the world. He's one of the best.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, obviously, like you say, Kell Brook being the primary guy, he's obviously fighting in March. But I reckon he'll probably be out again sometime, maybe July, which would be, summertime over here. And perhaps, there's a little stadium, an outdoor arena, the same place where he fought Errol Spence. I mean, I know that they're talking about going back there. That's like where he seems to fight or wants to be fighting in the near future. I think maybe you and him July time. Is that a good kind of time frame for you?
Oh yeah, I would love to, go over there. Eddie Hearn is a top-notch promoter, and he gets his guys opportunities, and he's doing things in the States now. And I even spoke to him about it on Twitter, like, keep me in mind. That's a fight I'll definitely be interested in. Early part or middle of next year, summertime. That'll be a great fight. Kell Brook is a tremendous fighter, a former champion, and his heart is very big to go up and fight Triple G and then come back down and fight one of the best young welterweights in the world today. I mean, you can't knock what he's doing, man. My hats always go up. Tip my hat to him.
And coming down to the last couple of questions now, Ishe, I like to ask this question to everybody that we speak to from overseas. Who would you say, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, who would you say is your favourite UK fighter from any era? It can be somebody still boxing, it can be somebody that retired 100 years ago, any era.
It was, my favourite ones that I used to like to watch that was just great to watch was Prince, Nassim. He was, I used to love watching him fight, man. And it's just his ring entrances, his swagger, the way he carried himself, the way he went out there and performed and fought with his hands down, and he was special, man. I used to love watching him fight. And the one that was most accomplished, that just went out and just got the job done, I would say, was Joe Kawasaki. He was just technical, just did everything right by the book. He was able to get the job done every time out.
Yeah, I agree with both of those. I mean, Prince Nassim's the most popular answer when I asked that question. Everybody loved the Prince, but yeah, brilliant. Two good fighters there. And also, is there any fights that you're looking forward to next year as a fan kind of point of view? For me, one of the fights I really hope happens would be one that I would love to watch: Badu Jack against Adonis Stevenson. I love that fight. Yeah,
that fight is made. That is one I'm looking forward to. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. Badu Jack is like a younger brother to me, so
I'm biased as well. Badu Jack beats him.
Yeah, so I'm biased. So people, of course, I'm pulling for my guy. It's some good fights on the horizon. I'm one of the ones that's not calling for Wilder and Joshua yet, because I don't see a purpose in it. I think Joshua has accomplished a little bit more at this stage, and then they're the two best heavyweights in the world. So if they beat up each other or Joshua beats him, who's next? So I think Joshua's a superstar in the sport, and, he doesn't need to feel pressure or be forced to fight anyone. He's more established, more known. He has a bigger name. And it should be that fight should happen on his terms, when he's ready and when he's comfortable. That's my opinion on that fight. I think Joshua is bar none one of the best heavyweights to go. He's just, the heavyweight division as a whole isn't as strong as it used to be in the past, and you got two great heavyweights, but I think one's greater, so he shouldn't be 50-50 demands and all of that. I wouldn't take none of that. And like I said, I think that needs to marinate for a while. By far, there's no one closer to those two. Joshua and Wilder. So why are they going to rush greatness? Let it build up, let it marinate, and then maybe 2019 will be a good place to have it, you know. But I'm definitely excited for Adonis, and that's a really good fight. Adonis and Badu Jack, if that fight is able to come off, that's one of the ones I'm looking forward to the most as well.
And the last thing I want to ask you, Ishe, have you got any kind of message at all to your UK fans, the people over here that are listening to you, that of course, have been following you for years and years?
Oh, I just want to say thank you guys for the support. It's been, I know most of the UK fans know me from the Contender, and my Contender stablemates went, and they had a show over there back in the day, and they fought. He was basically the Contender fighters against UK fighters. So, and I wasn't a part of that, but I'm definitely want to make it over there and fight in front of them. In the near future, there's some lovely fans, and before I'm done with this sport, I would love to go over there. So I just want to thank them for the support throughout the years. I have a couple fans that have been following my career for a long time that I've met through Facebook, and Instagram, and there's some very honest and great fans, and they protect their own. So I will say you can't say nothing about one of their own fighters. So they're passionate fans, and I love it, and I definitely want to fight there in the near future.
Absolutely. We'd welcome you here with open arms. Ishe, listen, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for your time. I hope that you and your family have a wonderful new year, and we will speak again sometime in the new year. Okay,
thank you. Happy New Year to you as well.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part is usually the preview part, but there's nothing to preview. If there's nothing to preview, we usually go to Ayaz with the latest news, but there's no news. There's no news at all. So what we're going to do again, like I said, we're going to just speak about a couple of other fights that have been sent in. We've been sent in a couple of fights from a regular listener. This is Danny at Valley Legend on Twitter. He has sent in Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. Again, I spoke about this last week with Spencer Fearon. He favoured Joshua. I'm sure he favoured Joshua. Yeah, I think he did. I mean, again, it's a case of who lands first in that fight, isn't it? I mean, I think Joshua's the more athletic of the two, the more well-rounded of the two, but he doesn't have the punch that Wilder's got in terms of a one-punch knockout, even though, Joshua can hit you with a combination and put you out. But I think that the concussive shots would be coming from Wilder, but it's definitely a fight that doesn't go the distance. I'd have to favour Joshua, just simply because I think Wilder is a little bit easier to hit. I don't think his defence is as good as Joshua's, and it's going to just be fighting fire with fire, that fight. No one's going to be taking a backward step, I don't think. I think they're both going to meet in the middle, because I don't really think that either guy is the best technically sound heavyweight boxer. They don't really, hit and not get hit and box and move. They don't really do that. So I think it's definitely a fight that doesn't go the distance, but I'd probably have to side with Joshua, but I wouldn't be surprised one bit if it was Wilder. How do you see that one, Ayaz?
Joshua Wilder is whoever lands first, that's what I can tell you. But
who would you pick to win?
Looking at Joshua's record and Wilder's record, I'm going to favour Joshua in this fight.
Yeah. And also, we've been sent in Triple G against Billy Joe Saunders. What's your take on that one, Ayaz, before I give my opinion?
Triple G, well, he for me is pound for pound number 1, but don't like Billy Joe, because a lot of people said to him,
you said Lomachenko last week.
Oh, sorry. Well, okay. Obviously, my number 1 was Lomachenko, and then Triple G. Now, obviously, if you look at Triple G's record, he's got a marvelous record. He's fought number 1 fighters. Billy Joe, in his last performance, the way he beat David Lumis was unbelievable. Right. If I'm going to go with this win, I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to go with the underdog. Because we saw Tyson Fury do it to Vladimir Klitschko, and I reckon Billy Joe Saunders can trouble with Triple G in this fight.
Wow. Well, that's a big call. What a show to make a big call like that on, the end of the year show. I've got to favour Triple G. I love him to bits, but the pride side of me gets in the way. Like, I want the Brit to always win, of course. So it's hard for me to pick a winner, but I think I'd probably side with Golovkin. I mean, if Billy Joe can fight like he did the other night, then obviously it makes for a really, really great and hard to pick matchup. But I think Golovkin, obviously, with the better resume, he's done it time and time again, sensational amateur career. I think Billy Joe, obviously hasn't fought anybody like Golovkin. And to some extent, Golovkin hasn't really fought somebody who's, a southpaw and who can move and who's got great feet like Billy Joe. Billy Joe's not going to stand there and trade with him. He's going to just get in there. He's got a good jab, so is Triple G, though. He's going to get in there and, land his shots and get out and be very smart. So he hasn't really had that fight. And especially this late on in his career, where I really think he's slowing down a little bit, it could be a banana skin. But I'd have to side with Triple G at the moment, for sure. But yeah, great fight once again. Also, Lomachenko versus Linares. I think that's a nightmare fight for Linares, to be honest. Obviously, it would have to be at 135. Linares, he holds the belt there. Lomachenko could perhaps move up and take that belt. Both guys have got brilliant feet, and I've been talking about that a lot with these last couple of fights. These fighters have got great feet. Linares is brilliant. He's an excellent fighter. He definitely posed a few problems to Lomachenko. He's very unpredictable, Linares himself. But I just think that Lomachenko, even though he's had those many amateur fights, he is the fresher of the two. He's the younger guy, and I think that youth could play a big part in that. I think Lomachenko looks unstoppable at the moment, doesn't he? So it'd be a brilliant fight, and that's not many people are talking about that fight. So that's a good shout there from Danny. Yeah, I've got to get your winner on that, Ayaz. Lomachenko Linares 135.
I'm gonna go with Lomachenko.
Yeah. Yard versus Buglioni. Again, this is a fight that I asked Spencer Fear on last week. He practically laughed at me and said that Yard would absolutely smash Buglioni. I am not answering it because I like both guys and I just don't want them to fight because I really like them both. They're two of the nicest guys in boxing. So, yeah, I mean, I've said it before though. Yard looks the absolute part. He looks the real deal. He looks like a future world champion. He looks like, a potential cash cow. He looks $1 million, but he hasn't really got the resume. And that's all I'm saying. He hasn't really got a resume. Don't get me wrong. I've said it a million times. He's knocked out these people in quicker time than these ex-world champions have and all the rest of it. And, I really like Yard, of course. But he hasn't really got the resume that Buglioni's got. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not saying Buglioni's got a wicked resume either. He's had some life and death fights with guys that are not that great. But he's seasoned. He's faced adversities. Yard's had everything his own way. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I don't know. If Yard really is the real deal, then I think he could stop Buglioni. But if he, if he gets hit on the chin himself, I think Buglioni can crack. And if he gets pulled into deep waters, who would you favour? Buglioni's been there many times and come out, on top. So, I don't know. But Yard is obviously the fresher guy. He's a natural light heavyweight, whereas Buglioni's moved up there, and I don't know. I think I'd probably just shade like 51-49 in favour of Yard, maybe. That's all I can say. But yeah, I mean it's a brilliant fight. I just hope it doesn't get made. Ayaz, Yard versus Buglioni.
I'm gonna go with Yard by knockout.
What about Terence Crawford versus Mikey Garcia? Obviously Crawford moving up to 147. Garcia just moved to 140 now to fight for a belt against Lipinets. That's a brilliant fight, by the way.
That's a very tough fight, but this one's just, I'm gonna have to sit on the fence once again because I can't choose a winner in this fight.
Yeah, that's a cracking fight there. Garcia, I'd love to see that fight. That's one of the best fights that can be made. Obviously, it would have to be at 140. I don't think Garcia is going to go up to 147 against Crawford. I think that would be suicidal. That's a real pick'em there. As I've said, Garcia's a really good fighter, and he's got a cracking resume. So's Terence Crawford. But yeah, that's a really good fight. Real 50-50. Also, this one, there's a couple sent in here from @happy_valiant, who, if I'm not mistaken, is running for autism. So shout out to everybody pushing for autism. They've put where to start. Preferred the World Boxing Super Series finals would be Usyk, Gassiev and Groves Smith. Obviously, Usyk and Gassiev may potentially happen. We were talking about that earlier. Groves with Smith, that may potentially happen. Obviously, we broke down the Usyk and Gassiev fight, Ayaz, but Groves and Smith, who wins that for you? Callum Smith, George Groves.
Callum Smith, George Groves. Ooh, I'm gonna go with Groves on points.
Oh man, that's a good fight. I mean, do you know what? I'd have gone with Callum Smith before Groves' last performance, and actually before both of their last performances. Smith didn't look great against Skoglund, and Groves looked really good against Cox. But before that, I'd have probably said Callum Smith. So it's a 50-50 fight, isn't it? I mean, I think my opinion will change after their next two fights. I mean, it's no given in both of their fights. Callum Smith's taking on Bramer, ex-world champion, and Groves is putting his belt on the line against Chris Eubank Jr. So really, really hard fights to come through. But I think that if Groves does a job on Eubank Jr., then I'd probably favour Groves. But it's no given. A lot of people picking Eubank Jr. And like I say, Callum Smith, I think he will beat Bramer, but the style that he does it in, the way he looks, that may play a part in who I think will win that fight, which could potentially be in the final. But right now, I'd probably favour Callum Smith. He hasn't looked great of late, let's be honest, but I probably would favour Callum Smith. We've also had here Crawford versus Spence. That's simply a fight that I really, really want to happen at 147. Like I say, Spencer Fearon already said last week that Crawford would win that fight. I think, again, depending what he looks like, I think he's got the tools to beat Spence. That's a mega fight there, Ayaz. What's your thoughts on that Crawford-Spence?
That's a very tough fight. But obviously, we only seen Crawford fight at 140. I want to see what he fights at 147. Errol Spence, he's a very, very good fighter. But if I'm going to choose a winner, I'm going to go for Errol Spence.
And we've also had a couple that we've actually already had. Kovalev, Beterbiev, we talked about that. Lomachenko, Linares, we talked about that. Joshua Wilder, we've had that. Inoue Tete as well, we've had that. And Billy Joe and Triple G. So yeah, those obviously a lot of people that follow us on Twitter, a lot of people that listen to this show, they know boxing. Okay, so we've had a lot of people saying the same kind of things, and the reason is because these people know they're boxing. These people want to see the same fights. These people are hardcore boxing fans. So credit to everybody that sent in a fight that we spoke about there. Just before we close out part 2, Ayaz, is there another fight out there that you may want to see that nobody's mentioned that we should talk about quickly?
Yes, Frampton Selby.
Yeah, wicked shout. All right, you take us away with that, Ayaz. How do you think that fight plays out?
Well, Selby's next fight is most likely going to be against Josh Warrington.
Yeah.
And Frampton's next fight, most likely will be fighting
Denaire.
That's a very tough fight. They both got two tough fights, right? If both of them win, I want to see Frampton Selby, and I've always wanted to see that fight. I think with Selby's got skills and Frampton's got both skills. I can't choose a winner, but it'll be a 50-50 fight.
It depends which Frampton shows up. Lee Selby's a guy, and I said it in last week's show. He doesn't really knock people out. He just outpoints them widely, and I can see Selby outpointing Frampton. Just keeping him on the end of the jab, on the back foot. Getting in, landing his shots, getting out kind of thing. And the movement and the change of direction that Selby likes to do. I can see Selby frustrating Frampton. And Frampton's just going to be coming forward. So, if they get some good judges on that fight and they're not ones who just award aggression, I think that Selby could get a relatively easy win. And I'm only basing that off of the recent Frampton performance, he didn't look great, and Selby didn't look great, let's be honest, but Selby still wins. Even though he doesn't look great all the time, Selby, he still wins wide on points, you know what I mean? He schools fighters, Lee Selby, very, very clever fighter. And for me, Selby's got the size over Frampton. Obviously, Selby's, a huge featherweight, and Carl Frampton not that long ago moved up from super bantam, so he's not the biggest featherweight. He's quite short, so I think it's a big advantage for Lee Selby. And I don't know, in the last fight, Frampton, he didn't look great in terms of his gas tank. So I think Selby could beat Frampton. I'd probably favour Selby over Frampton. That's what I'm going to say, Ayaz. It may be a bit controversial, but that's what I'm saying. And I'm just going to maybe throw one last fight in there, if I can, just before we wrap up part 2. I haven't thought this through, so I'm just trying to think right now at 100 mile an hour in my head. Jeff Horn, Conor McGregor. No, I'm joking. That'd be a good fight. Though. Ayaz, help me out with this. Who am I going to say?
Brook Khan.
Nah. That boat's passed a bit now, I think. I think the boat's passed for that one. It's difficult. All right, I'm going to go with one then. A man that we're going to be speaking to in a couple moments' time. I'm going to give you this one, Ayaz. Josh Kelly, Ashley Theophane.
That's a tough fight.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Well, Josh Kelly, we know him. He's got very good Olympic pedigree. Ashley Theophane, we know he's in the money team. We've seen him fight Adrian Broner. I think, for me, this will be a step up for Josh Kelly, and I want to see how he does.
Who would you favour in that one? Remember, also a little fun fact: Ashley Theophane's got more wins than any active British fighter.
I'll probably go with Ashley Theophane.
Okay, that's a hard fight. If Josh Kelly wins that fight, then, and I know that they're searching for that fight, Adam Booth and the team, that'd be a brilliant fight. In fact, let us know what you guys think about that fight on Twitter at BoxHard Podcast. Ashley Theophane versus Josh Kelly. And just before we bring in guest number 2, which will be Josh Kelly, and ultimately wrap up the show, I just want to take a moment just to basically thank everybody for tuning into this podcast once again. Obviously, we've been going now for over 2 years. It's been another year with you guys. This year we haven't missed a single week. We've been here every single week this year, through Christmases, through birthdays, through everything. Ayaz was on holiday in New York for a while. We still brought you the shows with special guests from Eddie Chambers right down to Mariam, who was on recently, a lady that came on for 1 or 2 shows. We've had loads and loads of people help me get the show out, but I've been here every week, so I just want to say thank you very much to the listeners that have also been with us for those shows. We do this show for you guys, and it's a pleasure. It really, really is. So thank you for staying with us. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for tuning in all the time. It is our pleasure. And also, while I'm here, just talking a little bit, I'd like to say, if anybody is any good at designing logos, if you want to design a BoxHard logo, because we're looking to change our logo for iTunes, if anybody wants to send in a logo that you've made, it can even be one that you've just done with an iPhone app that's just took 2 minutes to do. All logo suggestions, just send them in on Twitter at BoxHard Podcast. Just send us in a logo. The best logo that's sent in, we will send out a free BoxHard Podcast t-shirt. I don't know if you've seen them on Twitter. They are nice. A few of them have been won in competitions recently. So that really wraps up part 2. Just before we end the show, there's one last thing to do, and that, of course, is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 2016 Team GB Olympian and now undefeated professional, branded as one of the hottest prospects in world boxing, is Mr. Josh Kelly. Josh, welcome to the show.
Yes, mate. Nice to be on. Nice to be on again. I'm been looking forward to it.
Me too, my man. So, how about that for an intro right there? Nice one.
I know that. There's a bit of a build-up there. I thought that was a good intro. I don't know whether I deserved that sort of intro, but
you do, mate. You do. So, Josh, we last spoke in May. It was after your second fight as a pro. At that stage, you were 2-0. Obviously, now you're 5-0, and I just want to really go back in time a little bit. That third fight that you had was one where you knocked Tom Whitfield out in the first round with that unbelievable attack using just your left hand. You hit him with 8 unanswered left hooks in a row, which was pretty incredible. What did you make of that fight there, Josh? A very quick one for yourself.
It was unexpected from my half as well. I mean, I went out and I tried to throw 1-2, hurt me right arm. I did, and then I think I threw a jab and a left hook, and he slid across the ropes, and that's when I just jumped on him with a left hook. Because I thought I wouldn't take a chance and let it go further on. I'd just double up on the left hooks, and obviously he started feeling them, and he wasn't moving, so he just took a seat and he stayed there. So it was a good win, really, really good night.
Yeah, it looked incredible watching it on the TV. I mean, like you say there, you threw one, then you doubled up, then tripled up, then quadrupled up, and the rest. I mean, it was just it was unbelievable. It really was. Then, of course, you had fight number 4 against the Mexican, Jose Zuniga, who had never been stopped. You became the first man to stop him, and it came in the second round. Most recently, your fight on the Katie Taylor undercard 2 weeks ago today against a more than respectable opponent for this stage of your career, Jean Hamilcaro. Now, going into that fight, he had 9 times the amount of fights you've had. You've only had 4 going in, and he'd had 36 fights. Incredible. And his record, obviously, 25-8 with 3 draws. He'd also been the distance with Michel Soro, who's a world title contender. Also, he got stopped in round 5 by eventual world champion Jack Kulkai. So, you know, your opponent mixed it with some top fighters. You knocked him out in round 6, your most recent win. How would you assess that performance, Josh, and what did you make of the fight?
Well, I thought he was quite negative. I didn't expect what he brought to the table. Obviously, you said his resume was quite good. So me and Adam going off that and going off his fights and watching him, we thought it would be a really decent step up. So I prepared for a good hard 10 rounds. But he sort of come out the first round and didn't really toss anything. It was really negative. I made him miss a few times. I couldn't really land playing because he was literally running around the ring sometimes. It was a bit novice here. I felt as though his experience didn't really play out. But I thought he was going to come in the second round and try something different, but he didn't. He just went straight on the back foot again. So it was a bit more frustrating than an awful. But I thought I was starting to try to take him out with one shot here and there in the first few rounds. But after I knew he wasn't there to be hit, he wasn't really standing about to be hit, or he wasn't really throwing punches. So at a counter off it, I thought I had to start breaking down and going the body. So I did. I started hitting the body, and obviously I think the pace of the fight, him constantly running, me digging the body shots, caught up on him in the 6th round, I think it was, and he eventually I think his corner was going to toss the towel in as well. So it was just an accumulation of the pressure and the body shots. I think he just sort of took the side door out. So it was good, but I think I wanted to show a little bit more. But you can only perform on what you're given in front of you. So hopefully the next opponent is another step up, and just keep doing what I'm doing and show people what I'm all about.
And I remember when I first spoke to you back in May, I said to you that, you know, it was good to see that you hadn't really fought anybody with losing records. You hadn't fought anybody with 2 wins and 47 losses. And you've still not done that. You've still fought, you know, winning records every fight. And the way you're stepping up at the pace that you're stepping up at, Josh, it looks like you won't be fighting anybody with those mad losses. Who actually makes that decision to fight these guys?
Adam's the manager and obviously the trainer, so he pushes the fight and he chooses the fights along with obviously Eddie Earn helps put them on the show. But Adam mainly chooses who I fight. He normally sends a name over, or he normally sits down and says, look, this is the opponent, blah blah blah, and then we go through it and we have a little chat about it, and then we move on from there. But I'm not the type to say, Adam, I don't feel comfortable doing this and doing that, because I know he's got a lot more experience than me in the boxing, and I know that his choices are for the best. So when he picks an opponent, I never question it. Could be anyone. I mean, I never sit there and try and pick opponents. I don't really think about them. It just is what it is. I go in there and do my training and do what I can in the ring. So I feel as though tell him to do that bit. So that he's obviously been looking for likes of Theophane, etc. And I've never shouted out none of these names. A lot of people come to me and say, have you been wanting to fight him, or you want to fight? I've never wanted to fight anyone. I just want to keep winning, keep doing what I'm doing. And Adam's sort of the matchmaker, so Milton the manager, so he picks a fight for me. So he's the one who's getting these big names, so he's obviously confident in this, and I'll just keep obviously filling him with confidence in the gym and every time I'm fighting. So I can't wait for another step up. Like you said, I haven't had one losing record yet, and I think it could be the first. I'm not sure. As someone said the other day, it was a bit of a mad fact. It could be the first ever British boxer to fight someone who wasn't a losing record, or something like that. So that'd be quite good.
And I remember, like I say, when we last spoke, you just recently linked up with Adam Booth. That the relationship was going well. It seems to have even blossomed further. It seems like it's really working well for both of you.
Yeah, it's good, really good, mate. We're just going from strength to strength, and he's sort of perfect guy inside and outside the ring. What I need, he's obviously keeping close contact, and we're always checking up outside the boxing as well as inside the boxing. So just keeps it nice and on a good level. I mean, everything's moving forward the way we want it to do, so I can't complain, and he can't either.
And right now in your weight division, welterweight, you've got the likes of Kell Brook and Sam Eggington moving up in weight. Amir Khan, we're not quite sure what he's doing. Aside from those guys, the top man at 147, in my opinion, is probably Bradley Skeet. Just underneath him, you've got the likes of Frankie Gavin and recent world title challenger Gary Corcoran. One fight I'd really like for you at some point, Josh, would be against Frankie Gavin. Is that a fight that interests you? And if so, how long would we have to wait until you'd be in a fight like that?
I'm off any fight. I mean, you could mention any name, and I'm one of them lads who I have respect for the fighter, but I don't respect him in the sense that I don't think I'm good enough to jump in the ring with any of these fellas. I think I'm ready whenever the shout gets tossed in. But I mean, of course, I'm up for anything. I know these lads. I know these lads, and I've done rounds, sparred all the lads you mentioned the names there, sparred all of them. So like Frankie Gavin, I've done a few. I think I've done a few rounds with way back in the day. Do spar with Bradley Skeet a lot, and Gary Corcoran, I've done a lot of rounds with him. So I feel confident he's had a really good lad, and I feel like I'm holding my own in the ring with him as well. So I'm ready to step up whenever Adam's ready to put us in the ring with him. So I'm happy whenever.
And as I say, I mentioned there Frankie Gavin. You mentioned a little bit earlier there Ashley Theophane. That's a fight that Adam wanted for you. If I was to put you on the spot a little bit, who would you rather fight out of those two? I know that you don't really want to call anyone out, so to speak, but who do you want best out of those two?
Well, see who comes, see what happens. I think Frankie Gavin's fighting for IBF world title, isn't he? I think a bit of a version of a world title. I'm not sure what Ashley Stevens is doing. He's running off the radar, sort of thing. I'm not sure he's trying to get a money fight against someone else before fighting someone on the up and coming. Because I feel as though I've only having 5 fights myself. It's a bit of a risk for these lads to take, because if they start taking fights against me and they get beat, then where do they go next? Because I'm sort of 5. I'm just a novice in this pro game, so it's a bit of a mad one. But if they take fights against people who's well established and had more fights and more wins, they can sort of come back and bounce back and then probably get me. But I'm pushing out on. I want any fight I can grab my hands on. Who's big out there? Any names? I'm on it. Anything and anyone. So out of them two names, I'm not really sure if that's a sort of a choice. If they're to the next thing, I'm not really sure what's happening, but I know I'll be fighting around March time, so I'm sure that an opponent will see if any of them names get tossed in the mix.
Around March time, you say you'll next be out?
Yeah, I think around March time.
Okay, wicked. And also, it's been an excellent year for your gym mate Ryan Burnett. A real unbelievable year for him, hasn't it?
Yeah, mate, couldn't have asked for a better year. He's been absolutely flying.
Yeah, he really has. And as you say there, you'll next be out looking like maybe March time. Are you... Well, I'm going to ask you this actually, rather than asking you what you believe the plan is. How many fights would you like to have in the next calendar year?
I think 4 will be quite comfortable. Probably 1 March, 1 before the summer, 1 after the summer, and 1 before Christmas. Because, like you said, I'm not moving at a normal sort of... I don't seem to be moving at a normal pace, what normal prospects are moving at. I mean, if you're doing 6 rounders, 8 rounders against people who's coming there to get beat, then you could say, fair enough, you can have a lot more fights. But once I'm moving into 10 rounders and possibly 12 rounds towards the end of the year against people who really come to win. I mean, that French kid wasn't a good example. He was there too. He was supposed to come there to win, but obviously he had different plans. But so I think 4 fights will be enough because of the training leading up to each fight. If you're fighting for 10, 12 rounds, there's a lot of hard training going into that, a lot of hard sparring, and I mean. I'm not for it because I think every fight's going to be a massive step up by the time the end of the year comes. Could be fighting for like some big titles or in the mix of some big names. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and keep the W's coming.
Absolutely, my man, absolutely. And talking about recent things with you, obviously you had your own Christmas advert on the TV for JD Sports. How was that for you? How was that for you, Josh?
Yeah, it was mad. It was mad, mate. I enjoyed it. I could get used to being on the telly. When I first seen myself, I was a bit shocked, but it was quite good, and all the build up and working on set and everything. It was just an experience. I'm open for any adverts. If any other people want to toss us on their advert, I'm sweet. I'm ready to go. So. It's all good.
Have you ever been watching TV recently then, and the adverts just come on and surprised you?
Yeah, doctors. I was watching I'm a Celebrity a lot this year. I watched a lot of that. Because when I was in camp, I needed something to switch off, so I was just like watching it on the night time and just boom. And then I'll come up and start like the D&E advert, and I'd watch it and I'd not think that I was on it. Then I'll go, oh my God, I'm on the end of that like that, and I was just shocked with loads of times, and my missus was just like loving it. Everyone was loving it. I was getting photos took in the shop and all that. It was cool crack, to be fair, and I really enjoyed it. But hopefully a bit more of that side comes out, and then I guess a few more chances to do things like that. Because who doesn't love it? Who wouldn't love to be on telly? Do you know what I mean? So that's good.
Oh, brilliant, man, brilliant. I had this kind of like thought of your opponent, the French guy. Maybe he came over, and I could just imagine him turning on the TV in his hotel room and seeing you on an advert. Jesus Christ!
He might have. That's why I might have thought, oh, he's a bit of a big shot. No, I don't know what his plans were when he come over. I thought he was definitely a lot tougher fight than that, and I thought people want to get the money's worth. But that's what I want to do. I want to go in there and see people. I don't want it to be a boring fight where people come and watch and don't remember your name or don't remember me after. I want to be entertaining, so that's why I do try and be flamboyant and have my hands down. Obviously, I'm a total different character outside the ring. I'm down to earth. I'm really quiet, to be fair, and keep myself to myself. But in the ring, I'm try to be a bit of a showman.
Yeah, no, you're good at it, my man. You're good at it. You're not a boring fighter. I don't think you ever will be. Did you do anything? Did you do anything good for Christmas at all, Josh?
Just chill out. We didn't really. I'm not mad on all this going out and stuff, but just chill out and just chill with the family. And then down here now, I'm with fiancée, so I'm going. Me and the family's going to Jamaica and tomorrow. So just getting all ready for that. It's going to be good.
Excellent, Jamaica, yeah.
Yeah, Jamaica for a couple of weeks for the new year. So we're going to enjoy that and chill out.
Wicked. And just before I let you go, Josh, any message to your fans? Any message to the listeners at all?
Just keep on following. And obviously, I'm not a big head. I'm not one of the people who want to send one of them mad messages out. But thankful for everyone who follows us. Thankful for everyone who gets behind us and backs us and comes and buys tickets and watches. So if everyone would keep doing that, that would keep me happy. So it's all good.
Excellent stuff. Okay, listen, Josh, thank you for your time. It's always my pleasure speaking with you. Have a great New Year in Jamaica, and we'll speak again very soon.
Yeah, sweet, mate. All good. Have a good New Year, boss. See you later, big man.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 115 of the BoxHard Podcast. The scores going into the new year on the Prediction League are the listeners on 21, Ayaz on 20, and myself on 17. This has been the last episode of this calendar year. A big thank you to our two guests, the former junior-middleweight world champion Ishe Smith. Really enjoyed that interview, and the potential future world champion Josh Kelly. I enjoyed that one too. I hope that you guys did also. The biggest thanks of all goes out to the listeners for sticking with us for yet another year. Long may it continue. I'd like to sincerely wish each and every one of you a fantastic new year. Enjoy yourselves this weekend, people, and we will see you next week.